Welcome to Daily Ed Talk, where we engage in provoking discussions, all things education. So today's conversation is going to be a lot of facts. And that's just because I want to lay the groundwork for the conversation that I'm going to have with some colleagues. And these are not colleagues that work directly in the school that I'm at, but I consider them colleagues, and they are teachers around, you can say, the world, who are in the classroom currently and practicing, but they are in different forms of American education, we can say. We have private schools, we have charter schools, and we have public schools. And I just wanted to cultivate a conversation of the different types of schools that we have, and honestly, which one is best, from a teacher perspective and potentially from a parent perspective. Why are you sending your child to a public school? Why did you send your child to a private school? Why did you send your child to a charter school? So today, my talk is going to be mostly about just giving you an overview of each of the main schools that are happening in America right now and my perspective on each one. The American education system, again, is made up of three major categories of schools. We have public, private, and charter. And I set in those specific orders because that is the main order that we have based education off of. Public schools are your most common. Those are fully funded by the government. They're in your local neighborhoods or communities. And most public schools, you have to live within a certain district to attend that school. Private schools are not funded by the government. They can apply for grants and loans to help provide for their educational system, but they do not receive funding through the government. And then this new, I guess you can say, conglomerate of schools is charter schools. And I might talk a lot about charter schools in the future, but just understand they reap the benefits of both private sector monies and government sector monies, meaning they can get government funding, but they also accept private funding through corporations, donations, and such. But in the recent years, we can say charter schools have started to boom, and we see a lot more charter schools. So, public schools are free. Charter schools are free, but private schools you must pay to attend. Another key difference in all three is who can reject a child based off of their learning capabilities. So, public and private schools cannot. If your child has a disability they still have to accept the child and to provide the necessary resources for them. Now, for a private school, it can work a little differently. They can choose to accept and provide the resources, or they can decline and suggest you to attend another school because they cannot provide the resources for your student. When I was growing up, it was either public or private. And even when I was at University of Maryland and we were talking about educational systems, and especially in urban environments, I didn't know as a child in third grade there was a difference. I thought everyone went to the same type of schooling. So I had to step back and acknowledge some of the privilege that I had. My parents really sacrificed a lot for me to go to a private school. And to be honest, my mother was telling me that public schools, back when I was a child and even when she was a child, had this very negative connotation. It was very rough. Teachers didn't care about you. You were a number in the classroom. As long as they met test scores and showed up to work, they got paid. They didn't care. And the school maybe that we lived in, or the district that we lived in, wasn't the best school for me. So my parents put me and my brothers in a private school. And I didn't realize that until I sat back and I had to go to a public high school, that while I was in a private school and my parents had to pay money to go to this private school. But my perspective of having attended a private school and having attended a public school, I respect both of them in their entity and what they offer. So in my private school, there was multi-grades in the classroom, which was beneficial to me and my peers, as if you were struggling in a certain subject, you maybe got that extra resource because that younger grade was with you, or if you were a high achiever and say you're in second grade but you are able to do third grade work, you can still do it in that same setting. And of course, classroom sizes are smaller. So the teacher can be a little bit more hands-on, and individualized instruction can happen. Public schools classrooms are larger. They probably might max out at maybe a 35 or above that. And a teacher can't always have that individualized time, because in a public school, the high school I went to was about 3,000 kids. So I transitioned from a school of about 60 to 100 kids to a school of 3,000. So it was an adjustment for me, but I enjoyed my public school environment. I enjoyed that the resources that I wanted or needed, they were there. In my private school, it wasn't always there. The extracurricular activities weren't always there. In the public school, they were. So I can see these pros and cons. But then all of a sudden, as I'm in high school, or I believe I was in high school around 2010, you saw this pop-up of charter schools here, charter schools there. And I was having this conversation, and it was when I got to Oakwood that this conversation happened. And you started seeing in textbooks this new word of charter schools. And in my research, charter schools were basically founded off of communities and parent involvement. They wanted a school system where their child was put first and the needs of the child was put first, but still was able to access everything needed to benefit that child's academic career. So I was like, wow, I love this whole ordeal of charter schools. I did a fellowship in a charter school over the summer, and I came back like rejuvenated, like, yes, I'm about to open my own charter school. It's gonna have everything that I need. And then when I'm talking to my colleagues about charter school experience, they're like, it has its pros and its cons, but the cons for teachers are just overwhelming. And that's because some charter schools, and I'm not saying all, but some charter schools, because they are receiving that private donations from companies and corporations, it comes with stipulations. So they have to meet certain stipulations to receive the money that they need. So test scores are always at the top of the agenda. And when test scores are pushed, sometimes teachers are teaching to a test. They're not teaching for students to retain the information to become successful people in the future. But there are some charter schools out there that are doing great things, and I appreciate those charter schools that are sticking to the foundation in which charter schools were established. And I love that. So this conversation that I want to have is, what is best? Parents, tell me in the comments, how do you choose or decide the school for your child? Teachers, why did you decide to work in a public school? Why did you decide to work in a private school? Why did you decide to work in a charter school? And we can have this, we can say competitive or maybe debate, combative conversation about what school is best. And I honestly want to know, what school is best for your child? I know the answer, but tell me your answer. How can each sector or system of education benefit our students? Because ultimately, again, as teachers, we are here for our students. So which one is best? Which one do you feel is better than the other? Which one is the weakest out of all of them? How can we strengthen each system to benefit or to increase the academic success of America? You tell me what we should do. So even though we're working at 3 different school systems or 3 different types of school systems, I want you to remember this. Always do your best. Whatever you plant now, you will harvest later.